Hello and welcome. My name is Mina and I have 43 unread books on my bookshelf. And today I'm going to give a whistle-stop tour of all of those books, maybe a couple sentences about them and how excited I am to read them. I've got a new cinnamon candle that I have lit in the background. It's the first time I bought a candle with a wooden wick and it's making this delightful crackling sound for me. So I'm feeling very atmospheric right now. My honorary mention is The Ministry of Time, which is a book I have just started reading. I'm about 50 pages in and I'm enjoying it so far. So it is in the process of leaving my physical TBR, so just a quick shout out to it. My first category of books that I want to talk about are books that I'm a little bit intimidated to start. And for me, I think they're for good reason. Admittedly, most of these books are fantasy and sci-fi books, which I do love as a genre, but there are some books that I think are a lot more work than others, and I think these books fall into that category. The first book I'm going to mention is Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. I have read the Mistborn trilogy and I loved it. I have Yumi and the Nightmare Painter on my winter TBR list, and I have read his YA Superhero Reckoners series, and that was good. My favourite books so far have been the Mistborn trilogy. So I know I love his writing style. It's just, this is the first book and it's 1,000 pages long. And I've been through a bit of a phase recently where I have preferred a shorter book. I know I'm gonna like it, I just need to take the plunge and start reading it. But my main intimidation for this is the size and knowing that the size does not improve throughout the series. But I've just got to do it. Similarly, for size reasons, I'm waiting a little bit before starting the second Red Rising trilogy. I recently finished the first trilogy. I loved it. They were great. My least favourite book was the third one though, and I'm not sure whether that's a popular opinion. I might do a little video where I talk about those books. I think it's just not time for me to start them yet. Speaking of sci-fi intimidation, we have Dune, which is intimidating from the length of the series, but I do believe that this is one that can be read more of a standalone. I've heard it's a little bit boring. They're just people in different rooms talking about spice. But I did read the first page of this a while ago and I was interested in it, and the writing style didn't seem to offend me. But this has been sitting on my shelf now for probably a year and a half. This will be on my priority TBR for next year so that I definitely do get it read. I've got a friend who really likes this series and I would love to be able to talk to him about it. Likewise with sci-fi, another size issue, we have To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, who did the Aragorn series. Is it called The Inheritance Cycle? I will fact check that. It's just size. I just need to read it. I just need to accept that I need to read big books again because they are stacking up. I've definitely read big books this year. I just haven't read these ones. Something that's a little bit different to sci-fi and fantasy that I am intimidated to read is Hell House. I got this book recommendation from a YouTuber I recently started watching. I can't remember what his name is, so I will leave it tagged. This is a very recent booktube follow of mine. I would guess Ian, but I'm not sure on what grounds I'm guessing Ian. That's besides the point. Hell House is supposed to be one of the most genuinely scary horror books out there, and I can get a little spooked out at times. I would definitely need someone with me whilst I'm reading it just to feel a little bit more secure. So I am intimidated because if people who read a lot of horror are scared of this book, or this book makes them get a bit freaked out, it's definitely going to freak me out. Wish me luck with this because I want to read it, but I also don't want to have nightmares for years afterwards. Finishing off the fantasy section of the books I am intimidated to start, we have The Silmarillion, which I believe is intimidating in a very obvious way. Lots of people are intimidated to start this book because it is dense lore into the background of Middle-earth and the world that Lord of the Rings is set in. But I do want to read it because I am interested in that level of fantasy. I remember starting this when I was about 14, and I think I got about 27 pages in and then stopped. But I have a friend who read this either this year or last year, and they did really enjoy it. It was just a little bit of a slog for them, so I've got to give this a go. And the other obvious one for fantasy is continuing on the Wheel of Time series. I did get a bit fantasied out, and when I say fantasied out, I mean the more dry, epic fantasy, classic fantasy that we think of, things like Tolkien and Robert Jordan. I have read the first two of The Wheel of Time. The second book has been my favourite so far. I think I gave it a 4.5 stars. However, I only got 30 pages into book 3, and I just knew I needed to stop and do something else. So we've got to continue this. This is also on my 2026 priority TBR. I can't have it take me 14 years to read these books. But also, if that's the rate I go of one book a year, then that's the rate I go. But I will be reading this in 2026. Can you hear that? The candle sounds like it's on fire. The last book in this category of I'm intimidated to read it is this non-fiction book on the history of China. I don't read a lot of non-fiction, but I thought I would try this year to read some, and so far I have failed. I have not finished the introduction of this book. I am 14 pages in. But the reason why I chose History of China is because one of my favorite niche genres in fantasy is historical fantasy set in China, or a world or a country that's like China. And I know there's a lot of nuance I am missing in these stories because I do not understand much about China's history. For example, I read the Poppy War trilogy this year, and I loved those books. The first 2 books are the only 5-star books I have given this year, and I would love to be able to reread them with a more solid foundation on the history of China, on the impact of the Opium Wars, anything that would be relevant to really enrich my understanding of those fantasy novels. So I am determined to read this book in 2026, even if I just do a chapter a month. I would like to improve my knowledge on something that I really love already, and this seems like a good place to start. It is also only 520-ish pages. It is one that looks a lot thicker than it actually is because it has little sections of photos, so they have the thicker pages in. But I will read this. I will. I will not be scared of non-fiction. The introduction is just going to be a little bit drier than the rest, so I need to just finish that and get on to the good stuff. I will do an absolute whistle-stop tour of the next few books. I made a video on the 10 books that were going to be in my winter TBR, so I have already spoken about these books recently in a little bit more detail. If you are interested in hearing about me talk about any of those, I will link the video in the description, and it's probably the only other video on my channel, so it should be very easy to find if YouTube doesn't recommend it to you. So for my winter TBR, I have The Lamb by Lucy Rose, because we love cannibals. We love cannibals in this house. The Night Ends with Fire, which is linked to my love of historical inspired Chinese fantasy books. This is a Mulan retelling. Nod, which is about if 99.999% of the world couldn't sleep suddenly overnight, and everyone else that could sleep all shared the same dream. So I think it's cult, zombie, apocalypse, dystopian vibes. We have Project Hail Mary, which I want to read before the movie comes out in March. We have Into the Drowning Deep, which is a fantasy horror book that I meant to read around Halloween, but I didn't. So we're going to read this winter instead. We have Paladin's Grace, which I have owned for a year and keep putting off because I think I'm really going to like it. The logic of that is that if I save books that I like for when I need them, I know I have them. It also means I never read the books I'm actually excited for. Likewise, we have Brandon Sanderson's You Me and the Nightmare Painter, which I am delaying for the exact same reason. I think I'm going to like it. Therefore, I keep putting off reading it to read other things first. It's like when you eat dinner. If you're a freak like me that eats it in parts and sections, I save the best for last. But with books, it means I will never read them. So these two are my winter TBR as well. We have Observer, which is written by a scientist and a sci-fi author, and this book is about an experiment that looks at the mortality of the soul. And lastly, for remaining winter TBR books, I have A Darker Shade of Magic, because I've never read a V.E. Schwab book, and now's the time to start. I keep delaying this book because I'm reading other fantasy books, and I don't want to be in the middle of too many series. She's such a big author, and I want to have opinions on her, because I like having opinions on things. And I don't think you can have an opinion unless you've done your research. I'm really hoping I like it. I also have some books that I've seen that are pretty popular on BookTok that I want to try. We have Watermoon, which is about a magical pawn shop, and Hannah and her father goes missing, so it's about journeying into this mystical world to find her father. We have Blood Over Bright Haven, where I'm pretty sure the main character is the first woman to ever have been entered into this university. I have seen some criticism of this book, but I've also seen a lot of love, so I'm interested to see where I'm going to fall on this. I decided to read this book first because I want to adjust to ML Wang's writing style before reading The Sword of Kaigan, which I am a little bit more excited for. We have Iron Widow, which I have seen a lot on BookTok, mostly because the author keeps sitting on her books and selling them, which is a choice. It's clearly worked for marketing because I've heard of it. And I do know that I like Chinese inspired fantasy, so why wouldn't I like Chinese inspired dystopian sci fi? I'm also really curious about the idea of concubine pilots and the social commentary that's going to come with that. We have RF Kwang's Babel slash Babel, however you want to say it. I've seen a video of her saying she changes how she says it, so please don't come at me if I choose whatever way to say it and you think I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but I've also seen her say that she doesn't care. Let's say Babel. This is the last book of RF Kwang's that I have not read yet. I have read Yellowface, I have read Catabasis, and I have read the Poppy War trilogy. The Poppy War trilogy has so far been vastly my favourite, but I'm interested to see how I feel about this. I know some people have found it quite pretentious, so I want to see if I'm one of them. I'm not sure I will, but I don't know, because I haven't read it yet. I need to read it. These 3 books I have also included in BookTok books. I think I've seen BookTok talk about them, but the category these are probably better suited to is books I have seen booktubers talk a lot about. The first one is Legendborn, and I have seen Lexi, aka Newly Nova, absolutely rave about this book. I saw this book in a charity shop 2 days ago, so naturally I had to pick it up. Hopefully I'm going to share her opinion and her love for it. The booktoker, bookstagrammer, book YouTuber Dylan Joseph recently had Pachinko as his pick for his book club. I am not part of his book club, not maliciously. I picked this book up a few months before he announced that he was starting a book club, but I've seen him talk about it enough and talk about his love for it that I think I should delve into it. I have read some Korean literary fiction before. One of my favourite books is Please Look After Mother, which is a gorgeous story, and I'm hoping to understand and explore some of the nuances of early 1900s Korea and Japan through this book. And this last book, I would not call a BookTok book, but again, I have heard a booktuber talk about it a lot. This book comes up every other video. If you watch Leonie or the book Leo, she talks about reading The Tao of Pooh every so often, and how every time she rereads it, she takes a little bit something else for herself and it becomes a bit more relevant for her. And I love that. I am a massive overthinker. I'm always trying to get things right. And I think there's a lot that I could learn from this book, and I'm really hoping to have the same experience where every year I can dip in a little bit and see how the principles of Taoism are relevant to my life now. I'm definitely going to read this either by the end of the year or next year. I need to read stuff that's going to help me understand myself a little bit better and enable me to take control of my life and make myself happier when I don't necessarily have the capability to change anything in my life. What I need to do is change my outlook. And this book will hopefully help me change my outlook a little bit, make me a little bit more positive. I'm not a big thriller woman, so I'm not really going to talk about these, but these are 4 thrillers that I have. I kind of keep thrillers in reserve for when I don't really know what I want to read or I'm in a bit of a slump and I just need something that I know is going to be fine and engaging enough to keep me reading even if it doesn't knock my socks off. I've tried to expand a little bit because I have read enough Freida McFadden books now to realize that they aren't amazing. So I need to read some other thriller books. I have 3 books here that I'm actually not sure I'm going to like. The first one is Time After Time, which is a pretty obvious, to me, Cyndi Lauper reference. This book is about a woman called Tabby who ends up in the 1980s where she meets a woman called Bee who is very free-spirited, and I believe it's a story about Tabby adjusting and changing her mindset about life, but somehow she's stuck in the 80s. I'm just not sure this is my thing. It came in a mystery book box, so I didn't specifically go out and buy it. I think I'm just really hesitant when I see cartoon covers. I'm not a cartoon cover person. I've seen too many of them. I haven't even really read the books with the cartoon covers. I just associate them with cheapness and cringe and poor writing, which might not be the case. I might genuinely love this book. This is no comment against this author. I have never read a book of hers. I don't know. This is what I associate with this kind of cover. I don't know whether it's going to be on my shelf for another year or whether I'm going to give it a go sometime when I don't really know what I want to read. So we will just have to see what happens with this one. Likewise, we have either the last two books or books 3 and 5 of the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. I bought this series because I have not read many sports romance books that I genuinely thought were really good. And the first book I read was something like Play Along or Play It On. It's the purple one, if you know them by colours. I really liked that book. I think I gave it 4 stars. However, I have since read both Mile High and Caught Up, and I did not enjoy them as much as I did Play Along. So I think I've resigned myself to knowing that I think Play Along was a fluke for me. So I'm just gonna have to wait until I'm really in the mood for a sports romance, which is rare, before I read these. So I don't know how long they're gonna be on my shelf as well. One of my goals for 2026 is to find a type of romance that I do enjoy. I do read quite heavily fantasy, sci-fi, and romantasy, but I would like to read more romance books that I do genuinely like. I just feel like every time I read a romance book, I'm like, yeah, that was fine. So we're trying to find the magic in romance for me. Speaking of trying to find the magic in romance for me, I have bought my first Ali Hazelwood book. She's super popular, so hopefully I will like this book, then I can get excited for the movie that's coming out. I think after this I might try Bride, even if I don't like this, because Bride is definitely leaning more towards the classic paranormal romance that I used to read growing up, which was the catalyst for then, I think, fantasy romance in the current phase. So this probably will be the next romance book that I read. I don't think it's going to be on my TBR for very long. I do see myself curling up with it around Christmas time to give it a go. And that leads me nicely on to the rest of my books, which I have categorized randomly as the rest of my books. We have a slight category here, just in the way that I accidentally made the pile, probably when I took them off my shelves. Here we have 4 fantasy books. I would say that these 3 are romantasy off the top of my head. This one, I'm not sure fully what it is. This also came in a mystery book box. I think this is just fantasy. I'm not even sure if it's YA or new adult or adult fantasy. This book is about estranged siblings coming together to try and find an ivory key, and they all have reasons for finding this ivory key. Other than that, I'm not really sure what this book is about. This book is in my, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm not immediately reaching to grab it pile. And then we have these 3 romantasy books that I mentioned. I have a T. Kingfisher book here. The first T. Kingfisher book I'm going to read is probably going to be Paladin's Grace, because I've been waiting so long for that. But if I like that, well, to be honest, regardless of whether I like that, I'm going to give this one a go as well. There's another T. Kingfisher book I'm interested in too, but I can only make that list so long without trying any of her books. I don't even know if I like her writing style yet. We have The Crimson Moth, which I believe in the US is known as Heartless Hunter. I've heard someone on booktube talk about this book as well. I believe this book is going to be a bit of fun. It's about a witch and a witch hunter who are both kind of trying to spy on each other or find out whether the other one is what they think they are, and they end up in this fake dating situation. I think it's going to be pretty funny. I hope it's going to be a little heavier on the witchy side, but I'm trying not to expect that because I think this book is primarily going to be about the romance. But it seems like it's going to be a fun time. It is 100% possible to read fun fantasy romance books and also read epic fantasy like The Wheel of Time. They tick 2 different boxes. Not one is better than the other. They are 2 different genres that both have their audiences, and the audience do overlap. So there'll be no hoity-toity, I'm better than you because I read Robert Jordan and Sanderson and you read Fourth Wing. It's just fun. It's all reading. Let's all lighten up. The amount of ego tripping I see where people are like, I read better books than you, I read more intellectual books than you. Calm down. Let's all just mind our own business. This is going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to it. This is another fantasy romance book which is inspired on Greek mythology and also a Scottish ballad, I believe. I don't know too much about this. I picked this up on a book offer in W.H. Smith's, which has been renamed to T.G. Jones. I hate that. I hate that. Bring W.H. Smith's back. As it is, Wilkinson's, I believe, was renamed to Wilco, probably when I was like 7 years old, and I have been calling it Wilkinson's religiously the whole time. I have genuinely spoken to someone in a class of mine years ago, and I said Wilkinson's, and they were like, what? So I don't see myself suddenly calling W.H. Smith's T.G. Jones. That's going to take time. And in my final miscellaneous pile, we are down to the last 5 books that I have on my physical TBR. We have Ghosted, which is about a woman who is ghosted by her husband, but her husband low-key goes missing and she's just not reporting it, which is a little bit sus, but I'm sure she's got her reasoning, and I'm sure I'm going to find out. The initial appeal of this book was I thought it might be a little bit botanical horror. It does remind me of the cover of Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. It's got like the similar colours and it's got flowers on the front. It doesn't take much for me to believe a book is going to be botanical horror, but I don't think it is. I think it's just about a husband that goes missing and this woman just living her life until the police are like, hey, so you didn't notice that your husband went missing? I think it's going to be a little bit more literary fiction. I think she's going to take a little bit of a look at herself and think, well, why didn't I report my missing husband? Because you're right, I did wait like 2 weeks before saying, hey, my husband's missing. So what's going on with me and my relationship with my husband that made me wait that long? We have a classic, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray. I would like to read a little bit more classics. I don't feel an overwhelming need to. However, this one's quite short and I've heard a few people talk about it before. So I thought, look, if I'm gonna try one that isn't me rereading Pride and Prejudice for the 5th time, I should probably go with this one. We have The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper, which is about a brothel in Pompeii and brothel life. I would like to read a little bit more historical fiction, and this seems like such a compelling and accessible piece. I feel like in war novels, my opinion or my bias is that they're going to be a little bit boring. So novels set at a specific time might be a better place for me to start. And reading about a bunch of women in a brothel at a time that probably wasn't very nice to women in brothels, I think would be really interesting. We have The Death I Gave Him, which is about a man who goes into the laboratory that his dad was working in and he finds his dad has been murdered. So he is trying to piece together the rest of the experiment that his father was working on to find out who murdered him and why. This book cover is screaming sci-fi at me, so I'm curious what kind of research this dad was working on. This is probably higher in my mental TBR list than I thought it was. After reading the back of this before I spoke about it, I am pretty intrigued, and this has just been bumped up. And the last book on my physical TBR is a book I got from a charity shop 2 days ago, and it is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. I have read the Shadowhunter books, the Mortal Instruments books, and I love them. Are they a bit dodgy with the whole incest thing? Yeah, sure. But they're fun. Who doesn't find low-key dodgy information when they go back and they read books that they used to read when they were like 13? That's what everyone does. Twilight books are weird. What's with imprinting on a baby? And yes, you can tell me it's not romantic until she's older. She's going to be older in 3 years. That's weird. She's been born with a fully formed brain. Okay, it's still weird. It's still weird to look at a baby and go, she's the one. And I know he didn't have control over it, but you know who did have control over it? Stephenie Meyer. She had control over it, and she chose that as an angle. That being said, I would still totally read a book about Jacob and Rolex because I just would have to know how bad it is. So similar to that, the honest to God reason that I have picked up this book is I'm hoping it's filled with drama and a little bit of cringe so that I can tell my boyfriend about it. We started watching the Shadowhunters show after watching the Mortal Instruments film because he wanted to know what happened throughout the rest. But oh my god, the Shadowhunters show is terribly written, terribly acted. It's just a terrible show. But we're going to power through it, slowly, over months. That's not really powering through it, we're going to snail through it. I have heard with the Clockwork Angel section of the Shadowhunters world that this is better. So yes, they are all 43 books on my physical TBR. I can already sense that this video is longer than I thought it was going to be, but I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope maybe you've gotten a recommendation or two, and I hope that maybe there's a book or two you could really aggressively suggest that I read in the comments, something to really go, yeah, read this, read it, why is it still on your physical TBR? And I'll be like, don't know what to tell you. There's too many books, and there's not enough time, and I work a 9 to 5. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. I am hard at work removing this sticker from a book that I bought at HMV. They do 2 for $9.99 there. And occasionally they have some good stuff. But having stickers on my books is the bane of my life. And now I have sticker hands.